I think they kicked me off. Okay, we're back live on YouTube. I'm not going to talk about things involving diseases that are commonly talked about right now because they will do that to you, or something will do that to you. I'm not going to talk about it. So, yeah, I got kicked. Yeah, I totally got kicked off. Um, so I'm not going to talk about it. I don't trust a lot of what medical communities are saying. That's all I'm saying about it, and that's it. I'm done. We're going to talk about math and God and reptiles from now on for the night. They got me, guys. Like, this is a problem. This is a problem. Um, I don't, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. Because if I write it, they're going to catch me still. Yeah. Yeah, they got me. Yeah. Ridiculous. No, you can't talk about it. So, right now, live. Not live. I can post a video about it probably, but I'm not going to talk about it live. They will get you. They totally just got me. They have algorithms searching for words, and uh, what is this species that you're talking about? Forbidden species? You can't collect night lizards? Is that what you're saying? Um, yeah. Welcome back. We're back. We totally lost the stream for a minute, but yeah, it's crazy. I know. I know. So, whatever. It's insane, but just we got to deal with it for now. But I am starting a social media platform, probably. Hit the like button. Maybe that will help on YouTube if you're watching this. But um, uh, good to have everybody back after that brief hiccup where I was kicked off for saying forbidden words. But uh, yeah, what would words without saying them? I was talking about the most commonly talked about topic in the world right now that everybody talks about all the time that shut down everything. That's what I was talking about, Chris. So you can't do that. Yeah, you can't talk about health. Of course you can't talk about health. Why would you be able to talk about health? Like, they're gonna make it so that you can't talk about the most important things. You can't talk about health, and you can't talk about men and women. That's what it's gonna be. And that's why we need a new social media platform that I've been working on. If you'd like to support this project with Sentient Singularity Theory and the social media platform that's being made based on the patterns that are found in this theory, then my Patreon is linked on my website, sentientsingularity.com, or on the support page, or in the description of this video on YouTube. So, yeah, I'm not starting it by myself. I'm working on getting other people involved slowly, but I'm in the planning phase. I have been for about a year of this, and it's substantially planned. Like, it's not like just a blank idea, and it has never been done by anybody else ever. Like, it would be a totally revolutionary idea, and uh and yeah, exactly, asking questions is always going to get you labeled horrible names. But we're going to ride this out as much as we can. No, I don't know what social G is, but I'm learning code slowly. I'm not going to be able to code most of this, I don't think. I'm going to need help, but I've been planning the rules of the interface, which is very important. There's lots of rules that were like, you have to, if you're going to create a new social media platform, you can't just say it's going to be free speech, because the problem is that you will eventually leave if you are. I mean, there are certain people like Elon Musk, and even him, there are certain countries that he will not criticize publicly because he has too big a deals with them. But other than that, like he, has some serious balls, like as far as saying what he believes, and you know, I applaud that. But you you can't rely on having a CEO like that, because they don't last forever. You have to eventually build a structure where the incentives themselves form systems of selective pressures and incentives within the system that are self-regulating units. And this is why marriage is so foundational to society, because it is a self-regulating unit. And without it, you do need a gigantic government, because if most people aren't married, like, and when I say most people, I mean like overwhelming majority at least, are not married, then you're going to need a giant government, because you can't keep people in control any other way. And you really can't even keep people in control with a giant government. It's just, but it will try. And so you need to set up a social media platform that makes people, uses human nature to make self-regulating and self-regulating systems. And nobody has done this yet, because it's always just a free-for-all. There's not a free-for-all on my platform that I'm building. It's very specific in the rules that that are allowed. And it's not like rules as far as what you're allowed to say. It's just rules of interaction. There are certain people that you can't interact with, certain people you can interact with, and that is what forms the incentive structures that are important to have in place if you want to actually like have positive interactions. It's not about, like, I don't know what I would even regulate on. I'm still working on like what we would not allow on the platform, because what I'm hoping for is that I set it up in such a way so that the things that you wouldn't want on the platform are disincentivized naturally. That's the big difference. And so like I'm working on that. And it's very far along actually, as far as like design. Will you have investors? Yes, I'll definitely have investors, and I do have people I can talk to about that. Oh, that Elon Musk is just an actor? I don't think Elon Musk is just an actor. No, if that's what Owen says, I don't believe that. But I mean, what is an actor? I don't know. Like, is Elon Musk entirely honest? No. But who is? But he also is listen to Grimes, his girl's song about AI, and like, you want to hear his true thoughts about it? Listen to that song. I tried playing it on here, and it made me take it out, or else it was going to be banned in 248 countries. So you wouldn't censor? No, I wouldn't censor. I wouldn't kick, my social media platform would not kick anyone off, ever. There is a system in place for getting certain content like restricted, but I'm working on how that would be done organically, and it's not done by a team of censors who work at the company. It's done by the users, so it's distributed, and it's done by the people, but it's the people that are allowed to do it are very specific, in order to incentivize it in such a way so that you're not incentivizing censorship, which are currently all of our social media platforms are incentivizing porn and censorship at the same time, which is sounds like a superposition structure, and it is, but it's ironic, but it's true. And my platform tries to disincentivize both of those things. I don't want censorship of ideas, and I also don't want it to. I want it to be a place that incentivizes, modesty naturally and discussion of important things naturally. But there is no team of censors like Twitter Trust and Safety or whatever the F that is. And I would never ban anyone, but content can be banned, but people cannot. And I think this is very important. To ban someone is to claim they have no value to add to the group. And we all do things that are destructive. And that's just a truth. But no one is entirely useless. And I don't believe that any humans should determine whether or not another human is reached a point where they're worthless enough to cast out of the group. I don't. That's for God to decide and not us, and I don't want that happening on my platform. So no one would be kicked off ever. I mean, no matter what you did, I stand by that. Like, no one would be ever kicked off. There is content that would be regulated based on a system of, like, basically like a court system. It's like got a jury system to it almost, but it's not a group of censors and like professional nannies breathing down your neck. It's people who are normal people, but also people that would be understanding of you and your perspective. And so this is, I'm trying to think about structuring this in a way that you would want society structured, because people who say things like Twitter isn't real life. Yeah, it is. If it wasn't real, if social media wasn't real life, then we would be getting married and having children and having peaceful lives outside of social media. But that's not the case. Our lives outside social media very often mirror our lives inside social media. And not everyone, but like most people, but many people, too many people. I don't know how many people, but too many people. And so this idea that social media platforms are not real life is wrong. It is partially real life. Now, you do need to break out of it sometimes, which is why I don't stream on Fridays or Saturdays, because that's my technological Sabbath. I don't communicate on social media on those days, like, at all. I will end up speaking to my friends, and that's it. I do not like get on like streaming and stuff like that. I think it's bad for us. We need to disconnect and unplug and focus on dealing with the space around us in what we perceive as 3D space. And then, but we also need to deal with our digital space, and you have all week to do that. I think it's good to take a break. Any ideas? Is technically free speech good or bad? Yeah, there is no, I don't know what free speech, I'm not going to get into the debate of like, there is no free speech, there is free speech. You should be able to honestly and kindly discuss anything. But it is important that you be honest and kind when discussing difficult topics. More important to discuss those topics in an honest and kind way than any other topic. So I believe that you are required by God to be impeccable with your word, or to try to be impeccable with your word, regardless of the laws of this society. But is there ever really free speech? The mob doesn't think so. So, like, I don't know. The idea of like, is there free speech? Is there not free speech? I understand both sides of that statement. You'd have to define what that would mean before you start breaking it down. But I probably agree with Owen's statements about like there not being free speech, but then also think that, but I also know that he would agree with me that you should be able to discuss ideas in a kind and honest manner. Like, so. Have I ever considered getting linked up with Owen, Jim Bob, Vox, Anomaly, Razorfist? I don't know Razorfist. I don't know Vox, but I know of Vox, and Vox knows of me, and we've just, I mean, actually I do know Vox. We've discussed, I've talked to him a couple times in chats, but it's very few, and it's been a while. I talk to Anomaly pretty often enough. Jim Bob I talk to all the time, and Owen I talk to all the time, so I will probably get linked up with them at some point with this. I've ran the idea by some people in that group and discussed some things with them, and that's all I'll say about it. So like, some people are aware. Are you still approved or even approachable by the alt mainstream, like Adam Carolla and so on? I think so, but I think that they also are they're going to be careful of me. Like the Adam Carolla has no, reason to probably speak to me, but right now, I've worked with him a couple times, but but I didn't really know him. But like, would Dennis Prager and like Ben Shapiro or any of those people like ever talk to me? Not publicly right now, probably. I'm too unpredictable. They don't understand me. That's the thing. They don't think I'm bad. Like, I know all those people privately. Like, I know Michael Knowles, and like, but they don't understand what I'm trying to do. Like, once Michael Knowles, who I really like Michael Knowles and I have had like great conversations, and I've like talked about philosophy with that guy till like 2:00 in the morning, over like cigars. Like that, like I get along really well with him, but like once I went up to him and I was like, hey, like I have this idea. He was like, what is it? And I was like, and I was expecting him to be like really stoked on this idea actually. And he wasn't. He was very like confused by it. And it was that I said, you're never going to get student loan forgiveness, like total student loan forgiveness passed, because the right doesn't want it. And it's also not great because then you're letting everybody off the hook of everything. You're letting bad, predatory loaners off the hook, the government off the hook in some way, the students off the hook, the parents you're letting everybody off the hook. And you can't really do that because there has to be price paid. But there also has to be grace, and you have to find a way to incorporate both of those things. And I said to him, though, you're never going to also get all student aid removed. And so I was like, because the left won't allow for it. They will always have that. So I said, why is nobody talking about allowing for people to declare bankruptcy on their student loans? It's almost like Eric Weinstein's The Disc, like the distributed idea suppression complex. It's like the disc which is the beast. It's what Eric Weinstein calls the beast, is the disc. And or like where an idea becomes anti-interesting. It's like so uninteresting that we can never talk about it, this is one of those ideas. Everybody's always like, can we forgive $20,000, $50,000, forgive it all, not forgive any of it? Nobody is like, well, why don't we just allow people to declare bankruptcy always on their student loans like they can almost every other form of debt? Because that's an anti-interesting idea, and it's an idea that the beast or the disc would not like. But I said this to Michael Knowles, and I was like, what this does is it shifts the incentive structure so that now there's no incentivizing to loan out to everybody and especially people that can't pay it back. And also it holds students accountable, but allows them to get out of being debt slaves. And, but it also holds loaners accountable, like who loaned to people who couldn't pay back their loans, and they knew it. And they were just taking advantage of a government program that was pushed by feminine politics. And but like runaway feminine politics, which is fine. That there has to be some femininity in politics because it's a real force. But like masculinity and femininity can't be unrestricted. They have to be in a marriage together, or else they're not going. They're going to both become toxic. And so I said this to him though, and he was like, I don't know. Seems like it would really disrupt the whole system and, cause a lot of problems. And I was like, yeah, that's the point. And like, he didn't get that. Like, you're going to push for, like, I just did not understand why he didn't see what I was trying to do. And he didn't understand what I was trying to do. And it made me really realize that, like, the mainstream ish right, which is not the mainstream because that's always the left, but right now, but the mainstream right and I were about to break because I was searching for real solutions and they wanted to complain. And that's you know what, I take that back. That's assuming motive, and that's not great. They didn't know how to move forward, and they didn't see a forward-moving suggestion when they saw it. That's what I'll say. Like, they didn't... I was expecting him to be like, you know what? That's brilliant. And he wasn't. He was like, that sounds like it would cause a lot of problems in the system and disrupt it all. I'm like, yeah, that's the point. You know, I when I was working for PragerU and COVID hit, and I was like, this is great for the right, because what this does to some degree is it's going to really hinder, I think, the school system. It's going to show parents, the problems with the school system and outsourcing your parenting of your children to the schools. And it's going to also show, everybody that, like, they're learning nonsense, and also show that kids have way more fun and learn more when they're outside of school, just playing in the park. And they didn't see that. They were like, we'd rather do this, program. I know PragerU is doing their prep program. And, like, I don't know the details of it, so I'm not going to, like, comment on whether or not it's being successful or not. And successful depends on what you're trying to do. Are you actually making changes in the system systemically, or are you just trying to make changes for a number of individuals, or are you trying to just get donations? There's a lot, and I'm not demeaning any of that. Like, all of that would be necessary, but I can't claim that, like, their push right now to change public schools is being successful. I wanted PragerU to become much more of, like, an educational institution, like, for people that was, for young people, that originally kind of what it was supposed to be, but even more involved in that direction. And they wanted to go with, we are a conservative media company direction. And I was told that. And then now, though, maybe they're changing directions, and hopefully that would be awesome. I hope that they're, if I know they're trying to make changes in our school system. I don't know what they're doing. I haven't looked at it, but I can't imagine it being that successful, but I might surprise me. I'll probably take a look because I am curious. But I think homeschooling is really the answer, and then, like, trade schools. And I tried to push for, like, some shows that were about that, and I came up with, like, a whole show idea. It was never pushed. I hope one day they choose to do it, because I gave them the outline multiple times. But it's like, if you want to change a system, you can't just complain about it. The right is, like, complaining about the left constantly, thinking that if only we were able to talk about it, it would change things. And to some degree, it would. And that the problem is that they own the institutions, and then currently, and that you, like, the way that we structure our institutions kind of makes that an inherency to some degree eventually. And you have to deal with all the repercussions that come with that. But I don't think that it's because everybody thinks that they're like controlled opposition. I don't think that that's true. I think they're genuinely stuck. I think everybody is stuck in our academia. Nobody knows how to move forward. I think in physics, nobody knows how to move forward. I think in education, nobody knows how to move forward. Politics, nobody knows how to move forward, because we're so stuck in relativity that we are absolutely confused. We're just spinning endlessly around and around, talking about everybody being on some spectrum or another spectrum or another spectrum or another spectrum or a spectrum of spectrums. And like, you're talking about infinite degrees of variance, and you are finite, and you can't process infinity as a finite being. So like, the way in which people are trying to process information would require that they be able to process infinity, and they can't. Not even God processes infinity the way that people think about infinity. Like Lex Friedman always is asking, I've mentioned before, like, what is infinity? Infinity is infinite growth of information. It's not infinite like in an instance. It's a constant growth. And you can conceptualize it like that, but you also can't, like, that's a runaway train that's never stopping, and you're going to be chasing that train forever. Like, the point is to know where the train is going and not just chase it. You know, like I say, if you chase a headless chicken, you are a headless chicken. No, back up, know the headless chicken is a headless chicken, wait for it to fall over, and then pick it up and, you know, do what you need to. But, like, we're not doing that in politics or in science, any of the sciences. And even religion is stuck in this, I think. But less so than the sciences and politics. Like, they're much less stuck because they have scripture to reference. That's really it. Okay, let's see. Didn't you used to work for Prager? Yes, I did to work for Prager until like the very end of 2020. I no longer worked for Prager after that. I still love those people. Like, I have nothing against them. I have differences in how things should go moving forward. And what is going to make a difference in the world. And I think that my work has, at this point, has the potential to make much more of a difference in the world than what they're doing. But it's not that they were useless. It's just that nothing is permanent but God. That's true of every company as well. You know, there was a time where what the right that is kind of spiraling right now and just complaining all the time, what those people were doing was exactly what we needed. But I think that that's coming to an end. And that's not because, you know, it's not their fault. It's just like, nothing is permanent but God. Like, the place and the work that I'm doing is a little different because it is about discussing the ever-present eternal patterns of reality that are beyond multiplicity, that are beyond relativity and within the realm of multiplicity. But even then, the social impact of it coming from me is going to be finite. So, like, and I know that. Like, you got to just know it. Bro, we got to do a live stream about Torah again and why people don't start unions. Yeah, we can do a live stream at some point soon. We talk about the Torah. That was a good time. I believe because people are selfish. Look what happened in Alabama and Amazon. It didn't go through because they were afraid of losing their jobs. It's not about selfishness. It's about losing a roof over your head. Like, I am a rare person, and I'm not saying I am always able to do this either. Like, there were moments where I thought I was going to lose my job at certain times, and like I freaked out internally. I will be honest. Like, and it was due to me standing up for something that I believed in, and I was like, for so much of it, I was just like, this was when I went on Owen Benjamin's show. I was like walking with God for a lot of that. I thought God wanted me to do that, and like they wanted me to say that what I had done was wrong, and I said to them, I know that what I did was not good for PragerU, but like I couldn't say what I did was wrong because I thought it was what God wanted. Like, I love PragerU, or the people at PragerU, but PragerU, God, like, so you can't say it's wrong. But even then, like I was, there were a lot of that time I was like more okay with just whatever happened. And I remember even one of my parents was like freaking out about it a bit and was like, you're going to lose your job. And I was like, listen, if I believe God wants me to do this, then I also have to believe that God will catch me if I do it. And they didn't like see it the way that I did, and that did happen. That was exactly what happened. God caught me. But but like there was a moment where like I realized that I was really in trouble, and like I thought it started to hit me that I was going to probably lose my job, and I literally had like a panic attack. I didn't like change my stance on anything, but I was just outside in the parking lot like freaking out a little bit, because it wasn't just my job that was at stake. It was like the way that I would be perceived by certain people that I respected. And but that didn't happen, thank God. And to everybody's credit, especially God's. But it, like, I'm not impervious to that fear of losing your job, but of losing your home, or of losing, people in your life that you value. But at the same time, like, I realize that most people don't have that same like level of even doing that once, let alone like multiple times again and again. And I couldn't even do it forever. Like, you can't do that forever. Like, I don't think so. At least we're people. People are too flawed to do that, including me. And but if you're working for Amazon and like you think you're going to lose your job over going on, unionizing or something like that, then I understand why people stop. But you have to change. If you want to change that system, you can't just complain about it and be like, why weren't you braver? It's like, let's think about why they weren't braver. Why couldn't they be braver? And one of the things that I've realized, and it's probably one of the most important things when it comes to just like our bravery in our work environments, to only put up with what we should. If a work environment is destroying your family life, you shouldn't put up with it. Family comes before work. Or if it's causing you to lie, like, you need to change that situation. If it's going against your values, you need to change that situation. But if it's trapping, you need to change that situation. But the thing is we need to make it so that we can change that situation. One of the things that I realize that's really the most trapping thing about this is rents and mortgages. We need a system where, like, I have tons of debt. My fiance has way more debt than even me, and it's all just student loans. And like I at certain points in my life many years ago, like, I did have credit card debt. I paid it all off. Like, and I, like, my fiance paid off her car, and my car thankfully was a hand me down from my grandparents, and like it, so I don't have debt on that, which is nice. Lots of repairs that I need to do, but no debt. And like we've been going through this marriage process, and one of the things that I said was, we didn't put a price limit on the wedding. I said, I don't care how much it costs, but I'm not going into any debt over it. And I purchased an engagement ring with no debt, saved up, planned very meticulously for it for a while. And we can't really do this with houses. This is very difficult to do for most people, is to put cash down on a house and pay it off completely. And so if you lose your job, you lose the roof over your head. That is the biggest thing. You can survive with like little bits of food. Food is so cheap. If you, on survival mode, like I survived on rice and beans for like 3 years. I lived in California, was making illegally below minimum wage. I didn't even know it until after I like was gone from the job, and then somebody told me. But like I was eating a lot of Costco hot dogs, and beans and rice. Like you can survive on that, and you usually actually eat healthier than if you have like tons of money. I remember like, what's that guy's name? Tony Robbins. Guy was losing his mind because he had so much money. He was eating sushi every night, and it was giving him mercury poisoning, and he had to like realize that he needed to stop eating mercury. And so like there's sometimes it's good to be restricted a little bit, but you shouldn't be afraid of losing the roof over your head. We've never had that in the past. Like people built their own houses and their own shelters, and when it's much more recent development in society that when you lose your income, you're going to lose your roof. And I think 3D printing can really help, because you can 3D print one room at a time. So you can be like, you put $20,000 on a house, down on like an initial house, and it's got one bedroom, and then you save up $10,000, you add a bedroom. You save up another $10,000, you add another bedroom. You save up another $10,000, you add another bedroom. And like this process is the way that it used to be. And I was listening to Imran Hussein, who's actually like probably pretty controversial for most people in the West, but he is a Islamic scholar, and he's brilliant. I'm not saying I agree with him on everything. I don't agree with anyone on everything, but I think he's brilliant. And he was talking about his father, and he was like, my father, he built, like, you didn't have this mortgage debt. Like, you built one room at a time. And I think we need to get back to that. And I actually think that technology will allow for us to get back to that, but it's laws that are keeping us from that. And if people could lose their job without losing the roof over their head, I think people would be much braver. Or not much braver, but it would allow people more freedom, because they would act more bravely, even though it's not really braver, because you're not as afraid. Like, bravery is acting in spite of fear. It's not about having no fear. If you have no fear, then you're not brave, no matter what you do. If nothing scares you, you're not brave in any way. Bravery is like, it's when you're petrified, but you do something anyways that you think is right, even though it scares you. So I think people will act with more freedom, and I think that would be good if we can figure out a way to make you be able to own a house without debt. That's like, I think, the biggest thing. There will still be people that want to just buy a house all done and everything like that. So it's not like it totally disrupts the entire system. People will go into debt forever. You could get rid of mortgages entirely, and guess what? People will go into credit card debt. So like, Tenny, I don't know, mongrels of the beast watching who are petrified that they'll lose their rent-seeking ability, like, you won't. You got sacrifice to get things done, to do the right thing. Yes, that's true. Will you post this live stream so I can watch later? Yes, I will. But let's see what's going on YouTube chats. I know I got really off topic, but they banned me from YouTube. They took me down because I said something about current events and involving certain ailments and treatments or something similar to treatments that we're not allowed to talk about on live streams. Have you considered... Is there a specific track of Grimes to listen to? Yes, it's... Let me look it up. Grimes. We Appreciate Power. That's the song. Listen to that song, you'll know. You'll understand. Is your social media on blockchain? It will be. Yeah. Slamtron. Yeah, it will. I think that's the future. Even though it comes with its own problems. It'll be very freeing in certain instances, and then it'll also become like the grounds for extraordinary tyranny in the future. But I think it's the way everything's moving. But then I think that extraordinary tyranny will disappear also. But like you need a benevolent dictator or benevolent ruler of that blockchain eventually. But that will happen. But first you'll get a non-benevolent ruler of that blockchain. That's the anti-messiah. Think rules should follow 4 perspectives as your theory. They do, Esteban. That's a very good statement. They do follow the 4 primary perspectives of my theory. All of them. They follow all the patterns of my theory, or I try to make them do so. Most of the new smart contract ones will have a government system changes of voting system built in. Yep, exactly. Slamtron. Welcome, by the way. I've never seen you on the stream, but welcome. Yeah, you totally know what you're talking about blockchain, it seems. Free speech, good. Forced speech, bad. Yes. You know, Adam and many of those podcasters have a lot of time to fill. Yeah, I know. But Adam Carolla, like, I have, like, I don't know. Maybe one day they'll have me on. I think one day they will. Like, because I think this is going to grow. Because it's unique. But I think that they have to, like, it's going to take time. Like, they're not going to have me on right now. Like, I'm too unpredictable. Good content is basically currency these days. That is true. Yes, it is. Why would the mob ever let people get away from their loan sharks? They won't. But they... Sometimes we can. I don't know. I don't know. I see what you're saying. It's a struggle. Sometimes the mob wants to get away from their loan sharks, like, but it has to reach critical mass. And I think it is with student loans. That's the thing. I think it's reaching critical mass. Everybody is like, F this, but that doesn't mean that we'll do something smart as the response. The smart response would be, we should allow people to declare bankruptcy on their student loans. The non-smart response would be like, we're gonna forgive up to $50,000 to buy votes from people. Like, that's not the smart response. It doesn't solve a damn thing. It continues the incentive structure. Moving forward is very important. Yes. Why would the mob... I feel like many of the Lenos, Corollas, and Shapiro's have been dodging for tea the last few years. What does that mean, tea? Dodging for tea. For money? I don't know. The left lives in a fantasy land. They have this idea of free speech, of free stuff for people. Doesn't mean it doesn't cost anything. People means it doesn't cost anyone anything because it's free. Yeah, I know. They don't understand. It's not. It's the feminine perspective. They don't know how to solve problems, but they do see the problems. There are real. They feel the problems. They don't see the problems. They feel the problems, and they're upset, and they're rightfully upset. But the right needs to be like, okay, the left is upset for a reason. Why? And give them their due. But we don't. We just say that they're crazy. They're not crazy, but they just don't see the problems. They feel them, and the right sees them but doesn't feel them. So, but the right, it's funny because like my fiance, like women in general, not just my fiance, are they notice mess all the time. Okay, so like in that thing that I wrote, the theory of Every0ne, it says like the masculine perspective is aware of self but not aware of others, and the feminine perspective is aware of others but not of self. And like this explains like men and women very much. But when it comes to cleaning, like I feel like women look around the room and they see dirt everywhere. And I wondered for the longest time, I'm like, how do you see the anything? Like there's a hair over there, and my fiance will be like, there's a dog hair over there. Like one, go clean it. And I'm like, how do you see that? And it's because they're constantly, I think, thinking about how it would be perceived by others, the space. But men, we don't notice any mess until it impedes our goals. So like if you start tripping over things because, you're trying to do, build something and you can't find something, or you're trying to do exercises and you can't because the space is too cluttered or something, that's when men will be like, okay, it's time to clean. But until then, we won't. But women are constantly in this framework of like, friends are coming over. We need to have the place clean enough for friends to come over type of mentality. And it's just been fascinating to see that how much that is even like that women are aware of others but not of self, men are aware of self but not of others, is translating into even like how we view cleanliness in a space. Because I lived with like, I don't know, it was I lived with 4 other guys, and I think it was 3 at a time, but it was 4 or 5 over time in this house in California for years. And when I first moved out here, this is a bachelor house, and it was really orderly. And the garage wasn't, but nobody ever went in there. It was like the people's stuff from the past 20 years had just been accumulating in there. So it was like a disaster, but it wasn't because of any one person. It was because people, when they would leave, they would just put their stuff in there because it was just a bunch of guys that never really valued their things, and they would just leave it and move into a new place. And this had happened for like probably over a decade before I moved in. But the actual living space of this place was really orderly, always. It wasn't clean. It was dirty. It wasn't like people had like made messes and never cleaned them up. It was like nobody had ever dusted the blinds ever. Like ever, until we were moving out. And then we had to clean everything because we were the last people in there and sold the place. And it was insane how much we had to do. But it was always like orderly. There wasn't like, people wouldn't like leave messes if they spilled something out, but like nobody cleaned the shutters, like that's just not what men do, because it doesn't impede our daily like routines and requirements. But a woman who lived there would be like, no way, we can't have, company over. Like this place looks like it's just covered in dust. We lived right next to the highway, so it was covered in dust, like, and it was soot. It's probably been horrible for my lungs. But yeah, like we perceive things very differently. I don't know exactly what that was. Oh yeah, like that, by the way, that translates to politics. That was my original point. Translates to politics. I don't know how many people are watching on Instagram, but people are on YouTube. So glad I dodged those debt bullets. I was inspired by... Okay. Whoa. So much going on. The issue is stuck in relativity and also focused on technology. Focus on technology isn't even the problem. It's the stuck in relativity that's the problem. Like, technology can help if it's used properly. It's just a tool. This is like when people are like, are guns bad? It's like, depends on who's holding them. If I'm holding them, then like that's good. But if like some crazy person, or not crazy, but I mean probably crazy, like person is holding them, that's not good. So it just depends on, like, technology is dependent upon what you're, and it's not even about like whether or not I'm holding them or somebody else is holding them. It's about what it's being used for. If you're using your technology for good, like if you're finding a wife on, dating apps, that's good. If you're finding a hookup partner, like for a one night stand, that's bad. If you're using guns to be violent towards people that are not being violent, that's bad. But if you're using guns to protect, children from people who are crazy, like, that's good. So it depends on what you're using technology for always. It's not about even who's using it. I shouldn't have said that. It's about what it's currently being used for. Because we all use technology for good and for bad. But you just want to, like, be careful. Tyler should stick out his tongue more. Get some tips on hair from Jim Bob. Does Jim Bob stick out his tongue? Is that like a thing? I watch some of his streams sometimes. I'm actually planning on having him on either this or my my personal YouTube channel. I've talked to him about it. So we will do an interview with Jim Bob pretty soon, probably. I spoke to him about it like a week ago or something like that. I thought a lot about infinity. I wanted to give myself a tattoo in high school, and I wanted to be super literal. I considered the word tattoo. I ended up going with an infinity symbol. I'm not like a tattoo guy, but if there's a tattoo to get, it's probably an infinity symbol. Like that makes sense. The tattoo thing being super literal was funny. Maybe you should have done it. I would pay good money to see that interview again. Which interview? The Owen one? I can send it to you, Heavy Equipment. And it will probably be posted on my other channel again. But it's places. It's not gone. It's around. But I don't know if that's what you're talking about. So glad changing careers can be costly. Financial, energy, divorce. Yes, it can be very costly. But if you don't lose your house over it, then it's okay. That's the problem, is like you can put up with costly. You can't put up with homelessness. And because you can't, like, what type of gems and metals did you go for the ring? It was a platinum ring with a diamond on it. 1 diamond. A sign from Mercury. Yeah, Mercury is probably the one bad thing about all that seafood. I would love to build my own house. I want to build my own house so bad. I just want to build my own house. Like, that would be awesome. I want to 3D print it, though. I don't want to, like, build it entirely by hand. I like building things, but people who do build things also know that, like, there's a limit to, like, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is just, like, so much work. And, like, there's a burnout that you can get with certain things. Like, and I build a lot of my own stuff. Like, all my cages are built and stuff like that from scratch. Like, not from, like, I cut the glass and everything. Well, I don't cut the glass. I get the glass cut by the glass cutting guy, like, but I, like, watch him do it. I just don't have the tools to do it, like, perfectly. But I design the whole thing. And then I put all the pieces together, and I cut the aluminum for it and the plastic, but I don't have glass. Like, you need a big like table that cuts glass to cut glass well. You can cut glass, which is a little thing, but not very well. Aside from the mercury. What will be the catalyst for change? The what's the catalyst for change is the fact that nobody is happy. Like, but the problem is that we don't know how to change. Like, we don't, because there's no structure going forward. Like, Eric Weinstein even said this. He said that none of the physicists of today feel connected to people like Dirac and Einstein, and I think Eric does, and Penrose does, but that's it. And honestly, probably like Nassim Haramein and like those types of guys do to some degree, I think. But none of the people in our universities, like, none of them. Like, Sean Carroll does not, I don't think so, feel connected to those guys. Like, maybe he does, but I don't think that he is. Otherwise, I think that he would see God, to be quite frank about it, or at least the likelihood of God. But to see it as unlikely makes me think you're not a good theoretical physicist. Like, there's a difference also between experimentalist physicists and theoretical physicists. But if you're a theorist and you don't see God as the likely reality, or that consciousness is all there is, then you are not a good theorist. Like, you're not. You're so far off that, like, you need a perspective alteration completely of your worldview in order to become a good theorist, which then you could do it. But, like, until then, no. Like, I had such revelation. The other day I was listening to, I think it was Brian Greene talk, and he's a physicist, but he's also like a good communicator of physics, better than like Michio Kaku or something like that. And I am going to watch Michio Kaku on Brian Keating's podcast probably tonight, and I will talk about it tomorrow, because it was about the mind of God, and like, I want to see about it. But I think that those people use that term not necessarily not honestly, but not in the way that I do. Like, when I say that existence is the mind of God, I mean it. Like, and I anthropomorphize it. And like, if you say something like the mind of God, and you don't pray multiple times a day, however you want to pray, it doesn't matter how you pray. But like, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying, like, from my perspective, it doesn't matter. Then I don't think that you really think about existence as the mind of God. Like, I just don't. Like, I pray before I feed my dog, like, every day. That, it's good to pray. And I think the best thing to pray about is you're grateful, not asking for things that you don't have but that you want, but stating that you're grateful for the things that you do have. I think that is it's much more impactful, because if you ask for things that you want, which everybody does sometimes, that's fine. But if that's all your prayers ever are like, I hope I win that lottery, or like, even, I hope, my, dog gets, better, or something like that. Like, or family member, or whatever it is, or that you hope that you don't lose your job or something. Like, then whatever happens in your life is your relationship with God is going to be based on whether or not you got what you wanted. And that's not how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to work as God is educating us, because we know what we want, but we don't know what we need always, and God does. And so, like, if you hold God accountable to what you want, it's kind of like placing yourself above God. It's not even kind of, it is. It's not good. Like, you should, try. And also, like I've said this before, and I'll say it again, when I was unemployed years ago, like before I worked for PragerU, when this company that I worked for went under and I was laid off, and so was like almost everybody else. And I was an atheist, and I had my personal value and being very much tied to my job at the time. I was really like struggling, and I remember I was starting to realize that God was more likely than unlikely, and I was kind of experimenting with just how I interacted with that. And I remember the first time I prayed personally to God that I was grateful for these beans that I was eating. And I cried immediately, like as soon as I did that. And like I've come to realize that means that something touched you in an ethereal realm, in like a quantum realm that's real. God touched you. When that happens, that's what you're feeling. Your emotions are literally feeling of something touching you, but just in a non-physically perceived way, a super physical way, I will say. Actually, it's not even a not physical, it's a super physical way, and a super literal way. And I'll never forget that moment. It's very hard to feel hopeless when you're saying out loud that you're grateful for something that you're eating, no matter how bad other things are in your life. And so that was like something I'll always remember. That doesn't mean I'm always great at applying it. Like sometimes, I'm a human being. Emotions get the better of all of us, but I do tend to come back to that always, is like, you know what? I'm eating. Like, if I could be so much worse situation where I'm not eating, like I'm starving to death. It's like that, and that gratitude, only the true, like to be truly grateful, you do, as I've stated, in opposition to Clee Irwin's statement about like anthropomorphizing existence, you do have to anthropomorphize this consciousness that is existence if you are going to truly feel great gratitude, because you don't feel grateful to things that are unconscious. I'm not grateful to my car. I'm grateful for my car, but I'm not grateful to my car. And you can't be grateful to the universe or to existence if it is not a conscious being. You can say that you are, but you're not. And so, like, I'm going to listen to Michio Kaku talk about the mind of God, but I don't think that statement is usually used by most people in string theory and physics the right way. But I've heard him talk about Kabbalah and like how he was like, it's amazing how much the Zohar lines up with quantum physics. And I was like, okay, like, there's something there. So I'm not judging his faith, but like, I feel like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he's saying the mind of God being literal, and like everybody else is taking it as a metaphor in physics, but he's being very literal, and that's just the way it is. I hope. I don't know yet. I'll let you know tomorrow. I'll sleep on. But I was saying, like, I was listening to Brian Greene. I kind of got off topic, and like about like being like good at physics and having the correct perspective. It's all about perspective. And the other day it was like 2 days, and I was asleep, and I I had like woken up very early in the morning, or I'd gone to bed early, and I was listening to a physics thing, and I woke up in the middle of the night while it was playing, and uh, I had dreamed like about like this physics idea, like I saw it in my mind, and how it relates to my work, and even like sacred geometry and all that stuff, and uh, I immediately wrote it down on my phone, and then I uh, like went and back to sleep, and I then the next morning I woke up, and I started listening to that talk again, and I fell asleep again. It was like very early, and then I woke up and I had like another revelation about like physics, and I like wrote that one down too. And I was like, I need to think more about this stuff, and I haven't done the work on it quite yet, but I will. But I can see already that it's correct. It's not like mind blowing, I don't think, as far as like gonna change our world views of everything. It's about like it's confirming of the work that I've already done, but it shows it in a different context a little bit. And but like I'm having my mind is even subconsciously able to make sense of physics ideas while I'm listening to Brian Greene talk about physics and link it to sacred geometries. And people will say like, oh, that's just you being like, I don't know, crazy or something like that. But I know that that's not true because I can make predictions across fields that prove to be true. And like, I test myself on that all the time. So like, I know that it's work, that it works. And so like, I don't think that these people who are in physics though, I don't think that they can do that. And it's not because they're not as smart as me. They're almost all probably have higher IQs than me. A lot of them, at least. Like, I have high IQ, but it's not so high that, like, it's not as high as, like, a lot of these other people. But, like I said, it's all about perspective. And you know that when you're a good theoretical physicist because you're a good philosopher. And they're the same thing. So it's all about perspective. And it's just interesting to see how confused our academia is. And like, that's also true of politics. So that's why nobody has any solutions though. It's like, why is there so few people in physics that have solutions to physics? Like there's only like look at this. Like there's Tom Campbell, somebody who may still be in the chat, has been talking to me about him. I just discovered him recently. Seems very similar to my theory. I'm going to try and get him on the show. That would be awesome, actually. I'm still learning about him, though. Eric Weinstein doesn't say things as publicly as I do, but I know for a fact that his theory is not very opposed to mine. It's very much in alignment. Nassim Haramein, Clea Irwin, and me, and like all of these people are not physicists, but they are physicists. They're either mathematicians or psychologists, or I don't know what I am, a marketer, like philosopher type person. Like I professionally marketer, and producer, videographer, photographer, all these things, of content. Professional content marketer and creator, and I don't just mean for the show, like for everyone else that I've worked for, and but then like I used to edit a lot of those videos too that are up on PragerU. Like I didn't just market them. That was my main job, but I've videoed and photographed and edited, and like I wore many hats, but especially in the earlier days when there wasn't, dedicated, team of editors or something like that. And, but like all these people though that are making serious progress in physics are not physicists. And it's because only people outside the system are able to move forward because the system is just so lost. It's like you can't be in the system and just continue to move forward. Like when Michio Kaku's like, you're vibrating in 11-dimensional hyperspace. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, no, you're not. I understand where that number 11 comes from because I see it in my work, but it's not, those aren't dimensions. Like, you're not vibrating in 11-dimensional hyperspace. Don't believe the string theorists at all. Like, I don't even think physicists really know what a dimension is. They say it's a degree of freedom. It's not just a degree of freedom. Like, they're still thinking about dimensions within relativity, not dimensions within objectivity, which dimensions within objectivity are different, which is why I think in Eric Weinstein's geometric unity paper, he changed the word dimension to parameters, which I used the word aspects in my original paper. And I think parameters is better than aspects, actually. But now I call them the 4 primary perspectives. He calls them the 4 parameters. What if we call them the 4 primary parameters? I'd be fine with that. Like, but they're not, though. They're perspectives. Like, they are parameters, but they're perspectives. Inside, outside, separate, and oneness are perspectives. It's better to call them perspectives because it's more obvious. And but they are parameters as well. That's really good. It doesn't really matter what we call them, but one of those two is good. But like, physics is lost. They're like, they tell me I don't know what a dimension is. I'm like, dude, the way that you think about dimensions won't allow you to level up. Like, you need to think about this as freedoms and constraints, perspectives on freedoms and constraints. And if you don't, like, or parameters, like aspects of something that are more, they're not quite as consistently defined because there's differences between them. Some are constraints, some are or relativistic constraints or subjective constraints, some are objective, constraints. Some of them are, freedoms to move forward, some of them are freedoms to move backwards. Like, they're not as like universal in what they are. It's not just you can move along the x-axis, the z-axis, and the y-axis. It's like, no. This is not what it is. And so it's almost like there's only an x and y-axis, and the perception of the, like, 2 other perspectives are not axes. They are the perspective of being restricted to the axis almost. It's just different. So, anyways. Maybe if you have a book out. I'll sleep on a half-damp dog hair-infested quilt if need be. I did for a long time. Now I don't let the dog in the bed anymore, though. I have a German Shepherd Malinois mix that is like hair city. If I could find a way to make money off those hairs, like even if it was like half a penny each, I would be richer than Bill Gates. All LA County is covered in a layer of dust and grime. Yes, it is. Too focused on technology, I meant to a point of idolatry. Yes, that's true. To the point of idolatry. Goes all the way up to Santa Barbara County, all the way to San Diego. Yep. Einstein sticks out his tongue. Jim Bob has unrealistic hair on his head sometimes. Yes. That's okay. That makes sense. I think I came to that conclusion at 15 that I've been trying to fill out the details or show my work since then. Of what? I use your theory to predict things all the time. Good. That means you're starting to try and use it. That's what I want. That's awesome. You and Tom Campbell are saying the exact things with slight different language as far as I can tell. Yeah, I'm not surprised at that at all. That's true of me and Chris Langan. That's true of me and even Eric Weinstein. That's true of me and probably Nassim Armain, but it's definitely true of me and Clea Irwin, like everybody has got, a lot of people have got it, and we have to start talking to each other, because if we don't, we're not going to agree on the language. And like everybody's got certain things that they've said that are really good. And like, if how are you going to make progress and move forward if you're never able to talk about this? If you're never able to say what this is and call it the 64 tetrahedron grid, and you can't show it even in physical, like in 3D form, because you can't discuss the legitimacy of like Nassim Harameini's work, good luck moving forward. Like, you can't. So I do think it's important for me and Tom Campbell, and I would love to speak to Chris Langan, but that's difficult for many reasons. Whether or not it would even be like that useful is also probably more debatable than the other guys. But I do know that he has described the same structures as Tom Campbell and as me. And like, there are people that have got it, and to some degree, and different things. And, you know, we need to start agreeing on a language. And I do think that's about to happen, because I think geometric unity, Eric Weinstein's theory, is about to make some serious predictions in physics. Might be wrong, but I think so. Problem is that the people that follow it really well right now are still like, it's about fiber bundles, man. It's like, what's a fiber bundle though, man? It's like, it's a mind, man. Like, one day Eric's going to have to reveal that very publicly, and people are going to have to be ready for it too. Like, and he has said it before to many people, but like, if you're not ready for something, you're going to reject it violently, which has happened, or it's going to go right over your head, which has also happened. So, you know, I understand why sometimes people need to be like buttered up, I guess, but I don't know. I tend to just be like, say what I believe, and then just like whoever sees it and believes it goes for it. But I don't know. I'm much earlier on in this process than most of these guys, but I also think I've made more significant progress than many of them as far as defining the overall like structures into very simplistic and consistent forms. And I think that's partially because I'm not an academic. Like, I had to simplify everything because like I just don't have the academic language to make it too complicated. And I think it worked actually in my favor, but but I can tell like other people have got it. I have no problem admitting that, but we need to start talking, because like Clea Irwin's right. The objective shape of everything is a tetrahedron, geometrically. Eric Weinstein's right. That is even technically, like, when we really start to look at it as a mathematical function, it's a fiber bundle. You know, they're like, everybody's right who's coming at this from outside physics. You know, I wrote to an experimentalist that I know that is growing in popularity. I won't say right now, but you could guess. And I was like, you know, actually, I'll just say, like, I recommended to Brian Keating that you know, he have on like a Nassim Haramein or a Clea Irwin to talk about their work, instead of having on, like, it's good to have on you know, he just had on what's his name, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I'll probably watch it at some point, but I'm not rushing to watch it like I would if it was like, you know, I don't know, Garrett Lisi or Wolfram or something like that, or Eric. But like, I'm curious just to see what I would watch it only because I would want to see what the mainstream's perspective kind of is at right now, with all these other theories of everything that are, you know, kind of starting to be revealed, that are all very similar. But I recommended that he have on like a Nassim Haramein or something, because he had asked on his YouTube page, like, should I have on, a flat earther or like a UFOologist or something like that, and which one would you want to see out of everybody there? I think I marked a UFOologist out of the ones that he said, because I do think that there's something going on. I'm not saying they're aliens, but there's something going on with that. I do believe that. But I don't think they're aliens, but I think that there's beings flying around and things. And basically, like, that would be interesting, but it would be way more interesting to have on somebody even more outside the system than even Eric Weinstein, who is, mathematician, kind of accepted. That's a field that's accepted by physics as legitimate, which is why Eric's even able to talk about this stuff without, and he was hazed when he first came out with this thesis, but like, and he's told the story now on Joe Rogan a little bit, but like, he's told it privately in more detail, and it was met with extreme hostility. Like, why would you not be allowed to defend your and attend your own thesis defense? Like, that is an attempt to keep you from being able to defend yourself, because once I was told I was not going to be able to show my theory within actually one of the discords dedicated to Eric Weinstein's show, ironically, because I was too eloquent, I was told. And that's exactly what they did to Eric. You don't block someone from attending their own thesis defense unless you're afraid that they're going to be able to like linguistically beat you, and you don't want them to. And that's not good. But like, I think it'd be more interesting to see like somebody like Nassim Haramein or Clea Irwin, or be taken more seriously by other physicists. And I think that's going to happen as Wolfram and Eric Weinstein get taken more seriously, and that's good, because that means that it paves the way for this work to be taken more seriously as well. So but we need to start talking eventually, and like, it does suck that nobody is, and it's just out of competition. Everybody wants to be the guy that comes up with the theory that is the name of the theory that's the final theory. I think geometric unity is a name that we will actually adopt for what it is, specifically physics related, but that's not a theory of everything. And geometric unity is the theory, but it is like very much the theory, but it's the wrong name. Like, if it's going to extend outside of physics, it's the wrong name. Sentient Singularity Theory is the name. No, like Max Tegmark's mathematical universe, it's like, obviously the universe is mathematical. Like, he kind of claimed mathematical universe theory as like a name, funny enough, because like, it's obviously mathematical. So it almost seems like, oh, well, it's definitely, you can't lose. And then, you have like a step above that. It's like Wolfram claims like, computational hypergraph universe theory. It's like, that obviously it's a computational hypergraph. It's like, you can't lose. But geometric unity, obviously it's united, and it's about relationships between points or particles, which is geometric structures, like, can't lose. But the thing is that actually all of them lose. Like, or emergence theory, it's like, obviously it's emergent, can't lose. It's like, you lose. The reason why you lose, but you win though. It's a superposition. You win and you lose. You win because it is geometrically united. It is emergent. It is computational. It is mathematical. It is consciousness. It is all these things. But it's not the essence of the being, of its being. It is sentient. It is. He is. Not it is. He is. And it's a he because it's above us in the hierarchy of the hierarchy. Like, if something's above you in the hierarchy, it's a he. It's not a she. So, like, if it's really like levels above you, you perceive it as a he. Gender is even an emergent, like humanity is feminine to God. It's the bride of God. You know, it's like that's what it's called in Christianity and Judaism. Like, and that's not a coincidence. It's feminine. We are all feminine, even men. Like, it doesn't matter, because gender is emergent. So this, but sentient singularity theory has the name right, and it's because it puts the emphasis on the sentience. It doesn't beat around the bush. All these other ones are beating around the bush. Oh yeah, it's a computational hypergraph, but really it's a mind. Oh, it's a fiber bundle, but really that's a mind. It's emergent, but really it's consciousness. Oh, it's, you know, it's mathematical, but it's really computational, which is really a mind. It's like, stop beating around the bush. It's a feeling, self-aware, sentient being. And it is the existence itself. It is a singular sentient being. You have fleshed out more mathematics and patterns than Tom Campbell, and I think that he has fleshed out some bigger picture ideas in non-religious terms. I'm sure that's probably true. But I have yet to find any significant point of disagreements between you two. Yeah, there probably isn't. Is there a word in German where they dismiss you because they can't debate you and still maintain their ideology? I don't know. Probably. Does that make all queens homosexual? No, it doesn't. Tom's word for larger consciousness system. Yeah, that's what it is. But it is a singular sentient being. Like, make it simple. Make it flow. Make it, you know, I think the problem with consciousness, to say consciousness, and everybody is, you know, lots of people have said over the generations, you know, this is about consciousness. Its structure is consciousness. Existence is consciousness. But it hasn't caught on, and it's because it's not, people will be like, well, what is consciousness? And I think that it's actually easier to describe than most people make it, but when you start dissecting it down, I do understand why it kind of like falls apart a little bit as far as like a defined meaning of it. But sentient is much more defined than conscious. It's about, it doesn't just think, it feels. And thinking is the fact that it thinks is inherent. The fact that it feels is central. Whereas with consciousness, does it have to have feelings in order to be conscious? Like, people will say things like that, but you can't do that with sentient. With sentient, it feels. And that also, when you start to break it down, it means it definitely thinks. Because as someone has said, who, you know, is on in the chat a lot, like said it on a Discord conversation, it was brilliant. Like, the feeling is the finalization of a thought. And so if something feels, then it thinks. But you don't have to emphasize the fact that it thinks, because does your computer think? I don't know, like, that's difficult to say. But like, it computes, which is thinking, but like, feeling is not something that we go round and round in circles about. And that's why I wasn't going to have a name for my theory. I just wanted to help other people who had already named their theories. And I wanted to be part of the conversation. And I gave up on naming it years ago. Like, I was like, United Quantum Force Assembly theory, United Conscious Force theory, like, you know, conscious force theory. And like, I just was like, everybody's already gone down this road. None of them have been adopted. There's something going on that I'm missing. I'm just going to wait to see which one gets adopted and then just join the conversation, because I know that I'm right about the structures that I see, but I obviously, like, I'm missing something on the name. And I thought maybe it had to be for aspects to it. So I was like, united quantum force assembly, like, and that is a structure in my theory, but it's no longer the theory. And I because it wasn't. What is a united quantum force assembly? Like, that doesn't get you anywhere. Sentient singularity theory does. And it was like literally, like I've said before on here, it was probably 3 months ago when I was like, I had an epiphany. And it was like, I was so adamantly had no desire to have a name for the theory at that anymore. Like I had a filler name that was just like, quantum force assembly theory or something like that. But it was just a filler name. It wasn't like I was attached to it at all. It could be geometric unity, it could be emergence, it could be, mathematical universe theory or computational universe. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter at the time. And then as soon as I no longer cared at all, and because I started thinking about it and I was like more, and then I saw like, a couple other theory names come out of people that I follow, and they're, describing correct structures. And then I was like, I saw singularity theory was a real theory. It's true theory. Robert Grant's singularity convergence theory or convergence theory, that's talking about a real structure. We are converging. That's true. We are emergent, like Clearwind says. That's true. But none of them are getting to the essential nature of existence that must be implied before you can build. And that is the implication of sentience. Singularity of sentience, not just multiplicity of sentience. Singularity of sentience as the base for everything. You can't even calculate the mathematics of creation without it. And I think that's why everybody's failed. I don't even think geometric unity incorporates the creation model that I have, which is the simplest mathematics. It's ridiculous when you put it into the right framework. Because once I was like, I'd watched Grant Leasey and Eric Weinstein talk about the universe and E8 and stuff, and I was like, then one day I just kind of had an epiphany a little bit, and I was like, I think I can kind of actually work out the mathematics of how the universe was created. And I'm going to try it. And I tried it one night, and I pulled an all-nighter doing it. And, but I did it. And I looked at it and I was like, by the end, I was like, as I was going through it too, but especially by the end, I was like examining the values that I got. And like, they were unmistakably accurate. Because they lined up with the standard model and my other models and all kinds of things. But you can't do that, what I did, without implying that existence is a sentient singularity, a singularity of sentience. Like, you can't. The math, you can't. You have to think about it from that perspective and be like, okay, assuming this is true, then what's the mathematical steps that I can start taking? And then it's all emergent. And it's so simple, and it's never been done in physics. It's been done in theology thousands of years ago. It seems to have been to some degree, but not in physics and like our current, academic Babylon system. And it's actually remarkably easy. But I don't think anybody's done it. I don't think Eric Weinstein's done it. I don't think Wolfram's done it. I don't think anyone's done it but me. And it's because I assumed oneness of sentience as the base starting point for existence. And when you do that, and you realize that all objective structures are consciousnesses themselves, are sentient singularities themselves, then the math is so easy. It's literally like basic arithmetic. And a lot of people have problems with this. They're like, no way is the math of the universe basic arithmetic. I said this to somebody once in a Discord, like discussion / argument. They were like, can you tell me why a water molecule is bent? Can you tell me why this is happening? What's a function? What's a What's a curvature tensor? What's this? And this was, it was before, it was right when I realized, like, don't play that game. Don't like trying to find a function when they ask you, because then they'll ask you something else until they ask you something that you don't know, and then they win because you didn't know something, and they just had to go and go until you. It's just an unwinnable game. Don't play unwinnable games. And but I turned it was like the first time I turned the tables, and I was like, can you tell me the mathematics of the universe? Of like the mathematics of the creation of the universe? And they were like, can you? Like, if you can, then go get a Nobel Prize and blah blah. It's like they assume that this isn't a process, or that, like, I mean, I don't care about a Nobel Prize. I really don't. Like, I care that I care about the experiment I want to run. I care about the creation of the social media platform I want to create. And I do care that we realize that existence is a sentient singularity fundamentally. And that's what I care about. And that we, like, hopefully use that knowledge to better people's lives. At least a lot of people's lives. But I don't care about Nobel Prizes anymore. Like that was never something in my life that I expected to get. And it's interesting that now that I actually do believe I have the skill to get one, not saying that I will get one, but if I'm right about the mathematics of the creation of the universe, no matter how simple it is, and it's all recorded and done and ends up being eventually proven true, which it will, like, that's Nobel. There's so many discoveries that I've made on this that would be Nobel Prize worthy winning, but like, you can't chase golden idols like Nobel Prizes, and it doesn't mean anything. Meaning is about your impact on another person, or another, person, but another sentient being. That's what meaning comes from. And when you realize that, like, it's not meaningful to get a Nobel Prize if you didn't actually impact others. And now you usually do impact others if you're going to get a Nobel Prize, but that's becoming increasingly less true. And, like, I don't want to play with corrupt systems. Or I'll like, we're all forced to, but I'm going to do it as little as possible. Greetings, I'm curious, why wouldn't you just go with earliest of the theories you mentioned, like CTMU, go to the parmenides and just call it henology or the one? Because that didn't work. If that would have worked, it would have worked. And I believe that work is true. I just don't think that it wasn't the right time also, but also the one what? When you're like calling it henology, or like you're discussing, or if you're discussing holons, or like, the one or the monad or anything like that, it's like, yeah, we all know of these things, but like, why? But the monad of what? Like, the one what? What is it? Like, what is it? Is the point. Like, is what I'm trying to say. This is why sentient singularity is the name. Whether or not it gets adopted or not, it doesn't matter. It is. Because it is. Like, the one what? The one sentience. That's what. Which is, the one sentience is a singularity of sentience. One is singularity. Sentience is what it is one of. Like, that's what it is. And it's doing lots of things. It's computing. It's geometric in its, the way you can describe it. It's, emerging. It's converging. It's, doing all these things. But like, and it is all these things. But when you really get down to what is it, you have to get down to it's a who. It's not even a what. It's beyond a what. It's super what. And the super what is a who. And If you don't do that, then you can't, like, the one what? Sentience. It's a good question, though. Maya existing within Brahman is also very much the same thing as an existing terminology for sentient singularity. Yeah, my dog's name is Maya because of that. Basically, like, I was thinking about, like, I mean, there's lots of reasons why. There's a few reasons why, but, like, I was thinking about, like, water and, like, Mayin is water in Hebrew, and I was like, I'm just gonna say a word, and whatever comes out of my mouth is gonna be the name of my dog. And she was obsessed with water, so I was like, thinking about water, and I was like, Maya. I was like, okay, Maya, and that's my dog. I will have her on here eventually. She's very cute. She's a Belgian Malinois mix, so she's a little insane, but she's very good. CTMU, or Cognitive Theoretic Model of the Universe, is perfect name in what it is. It is a cognitive theory of model of the universe. Sentient singularity seems to be what Tyler's theory is about. Yeah, cognitive theoretic model of the universe isn't wrong, but it's just not. It's saying that the universe is a mind, and that's not enough, though. It's not enough. It's not. I wish it was. But people will be like, well, is a computer a mind? It's like, oh my gosh. We're back to the consciousness debate. Of course it's cognitive. I don't disagree with Chris Langan at all. I mean, Chris Langan is brilliant. He's probably got the details of the truth of reality nailed down more than anyone else in the world, probably more than me. But that doesn't mean that the name is correct. Like, this is why I think we need to talk to each other, because we're going to need to pull from everybody, the best of everybody, the best of Chris Langan's theory, the best of geometric unity, the best of emergence theory, the best of convergence theory, the best of sentient singularity theory. Like, we need to pull from everybody. You know, maybe we call space-time, we call it, in objectivity, the observerse. I think we should. I think my model of the observerse is actually more nailed down than Eric Weinstein's model of the observerse. But I'll still call it the observerse because it's pretty similar to what he describes, I think. And I think it's a great name. Let's take his name for that. The change space between two consciousnesses, a greater outer consciousness and an inner consciousness. Like, Eric Weinstein says, well, we need 4 parameters, but he doesn't describe what they are. He's like, whatever 4 parameters, sweet, sour, salty, bitter. Okay, that's true. You can do that. But what are the base level ones? Like, what are they? They are the 4 primary perspectives of inside, outside, separate, and oneness. There is no way around that. There's no work that supersedes that. And there's no name that will supersede sentient singularity theory. There isn't. It's like, it makes sense that I got that name when I didn't care about it. As well. I was like, it's like that whole like manifestation thing of like what people say all the time is like, but you have to detach yourself from the results. It's like, as soon as I didn't care what anything was called, I was given like the name. And it's not something that honors me in any way or my work or anything like that. It's just something that honors God and honors existence because it highlights its sentience. You have to have a name that honors existence. Cognitive theoretic model of the universe. I don't think the name honors existence. And I think that Chris Langan does. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying, I don't think geometric unity does either. I don't think that emergence theory does either, or convergence theory, and I think all these men do honor existence. Like, that's why they're able to do the things that they're able to do. So, not ripping on any of them, but existence is the singularity of sentience, fundamentally, and everything else is emergent from that. There's a group you can come and talk with some of his supporters this week. He and his wife sometimes attend. I think you have to pay $1. It's basically a spam filter. I'm in a group for Chris Langan on Facebook, but if you find me on Instagram, which is Echo of Ellie, is that your name? Find me on Instagram, which is just Theory of Every0ne on Instagram, and send me a private message. I'm really good about answering those eventually. Sometimes it takes me a little bit, but if I'm looking for you, I'll find you very quickly. And sometimes YouTube is weird. People will send me messages or leave comments, and then I go to check them and they're gone. It's very strange. So it's best to just do it on Instagram. But I would, attend something like that. But I invited him onto the show. I'm going to do it again. I've done it twice. I'll do it again. Like, he hasn't responded, but, and I understand. No, I don't blame him for that. But there's also a lot of it's going to be hard to get people to come on here to discuss a theory of everything with somebody who has a similar theory, but with a different name, because, like I said, there's lots of competition in this field. Not by me. It seems like it is by me, but it's really not. And but there is a legitimizing aspect of going on somebody else's show that they might not want to do, because then I'm legitimate competition, it seems to them, which I'm not, because I believe that they're correct. I believe Chris Langan got a lot nailed down, way more than academia. CTMU states the name of what it is itself, a cognitive theory of what the model of the universe is. The name doesn't seem to be saying what the universe is. Yeah, that's true, Chris. You're right. That's true. You know what? That's a very good point. I will say that. But I still think it needs to be stating what the universe is. But I do think that you made a very good point. It's CTMU is a cognitive theoretic model of the universe. That's true. And it's about what the model is. It's not about, but it's both. It's a superposition. It's a cognitive theoretic model. Cognitive it's saying it's a mind. But so it does need to say what it is. It does. But you still make a good point. It's kind of complicated though, because they all, the theory of relativity was named exactly perfectly. It's like general relativity. Yep. That's what it is. It's like geometric unity is actually really, really good. But if it's just restricted to physics. But as soon as I saw Eric Weinstein's paper and he was like, it's a theory of everything. It's a first attempt at a theory of everything. It's not a first attempt, but it is a very serious, it has more recognition than most anyone else's first attempts that aren't theological traditions, which are also almost theories of everything. But even then, not quite. And it's complicated, but because when you get into this level, it's all about superposition. So things are and aren't something that would seem to be inevitable, but it's actually dependent. Inevitably contradictory, but actually they are dependent. What you're saying with the names, a coincidence like Jung would call synchronicity, perhaps. Yeah, well, synchronicity it's just what other people call, when people are like, oh, it's synchronicities, or they're symmetries. That's what they are geometrically. Like, synchronicities are the observation. It's when we perceive a symmetry happening that is usually seems independent, but they're not. But I don't know exactly what you mean by how the names are there. But I do think that the names are good. I'm not saying we even dismiss these theories. I don't say we dismiss CTMU, the name. I'm not saying we dismiss geometric unity, the name, or emergence theory, the name. I'm just saying they need to be restricted to something specific about why it's emergent or why it's geometrically united in physics, or why, through mathematics, why, something is converging, why, something is computational or cognitive, like, and then restricted to explaining why that is true, and then feed it all together into a greater theory that where all of these things, like when you ask what is emergent, what is converging, what is cognitive, what is computational, what is mathematical, a sentience. That's what it is. Like, there's no way around it. This is why I keep saying I'm right. It's not because I'm right and they're wrong. It's because the name Sentient Singularity Theory is inevitably the name. The only other theory name that you could go to, and it's even then, it's probably not as good, is God theory. And the reason why God theory isn't as good is because it's such a loaded word, and people will be like, well, which God? It's like, there's only one God if there's a God, and it's just the oneness of existence. But people assume that it's linked to religion, so they're like, is it the Jewish God or is it the Muslim God? It's like, you're assuming they're different gods. They're not. There's different theological traditions, but they're not different gods. If there's only one God, then we're talking about the same God. And if that God is the totality of existence, then we're talking about the same God. It's just the sentience of existence. That is the only God. Everything else below that is creation. And there are different levels within that, but there's only one God. And it is existence itself, and it is sentient. There's sentience, there's no way we'd have to change the definition of sentience. And honestly, like, if this starts to catch on, they'll change the definition of sentience over time by accident, or by accident from our perspective, but it's the beast or the disc that does it. It's like the unconscious mob changes. Like, they used to call different iterations of airplanes species. Okay. When you watch like documentaries from the 1920s, 1930s, and they're looking at, airplanes and cars, they're like, when you're looking at this species over here, this airplane, it's like, we don't do that anymore. And the reason why is because it's too linked to creationism. Because if we created that airplane and that's a species, an F-16, species F-16, a species fighter jet, I don't know, like, and subspecies F-16, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But like, then it links it to creation, and people used to do that, and they don't anymore because it was the beast is real. And it's, Graham Hancock wrote something once, and I don't know the details of him saying that, but I read it and I was like, this is true overall statement, is this war on consciousness. There is a war on consciousness. There is a war on awareness and of sentience. And if the beast is anything, it's something that just wants to, do the opposite of anthropomorphize everything. Everyone. You are supposed to not anthropomorphize your car. You don't anthropomorphize your plates and bowls and knives and forks, but the molecules within them should be anthropomorphized. They're just moving at a time scale that we can't perceive, to link it back to the beginning of the stream. And that's why we don't think it's life. Because you think that plants are moving, so slowly that they're just not conscious, but then you take a time lapse of the jungle and you speed it up and you're like, holy crap, that's a war. And it's also, an orgy, and it's also like, a gathering of friends and also like the meeting of enemies. And it's like, it's all of these things that we perceive in, mobile animals as well that move quicker on our time scales. But we can see it when we speed up, that kind of stuff with plants. But we don't even have the camera technology or the time to do this with molecules and atoms, but or the ability to view them on the scale in which they would display the characteristics in an observable fashion, their physical attributes, their physically observed attributes that would allow them to accomplish their perceived traits that we can perceive, but we don't perceive how. Like, you can perceive a human move, like a human moves from over here to over there, but like we perceive how, because we're like, oh, there's legs, or we look at a cat running across the street and you're like, okay, there's legs on that cat, that's why it's running. We don't look at, proton and be like, there's legs, but like there might not be legs. There's no legs on most plants. They're relying on wind. It's like, well, okay, what's the force below wind that's moving things around? Gravity. Okay, so there are certain levels of consciousness and life that are lower than us, that require and are based on, their movement is based on the interactions between fundamental forces like gravity, electromagnetism, which they're not even different, but in the way that we perceive them, they're a little different. Or the strong, nuclear force, or then we see decay through the weak force, and this is, we see decay in us via, all kinds of entropy. Like, there's a scaling up in complexity that's happening, and there's an autonomy that's growing as the levels of the periods of consciousness level up. But just because something can't run doesn't mean it's not conscious. Plants don't run. They rely on the wind to move, and us to move them around when the seeds stick to your clothes or your, fur or whatever. Like, atoms and molecules do the same thing, but it's even more fundamental. And they're relying on forces even more fundamental. Gravitational force and, electricity and magnetism and all kinds of stuff. So the more we go through these, level up through these periods of growth that I think line up with Bott periodicity in mathematics, which, I haven't even showed my screen once this entire time, but I'll do it now real quick just to finish this up. Like, the more self-animated we become, but that doesn't mean that you're not conscious or sentient even at the level of an atom or a proton. Even a proton is literally a male and a neutron is literally a female. It's not like a male and a female. It is a male and a female. It is. Wow, lots of people joined at one point. The universe is a mind. What are we? Little minds within the universe. Got to go. Official AJ99 joined. Awesome. Bananas or something. Our Fibobund is basically metaphysical axions and axiom terminals. Probably. I'd have to look up exactly the definitions of those to be sure. But fiber bundles are minds. That's what they are. They're minds. Nico Meyer was watching at some point. I don't know if you are still, but at the beginning of the stream I talked about how I am going to release your stream tomorrow at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. So if you're still listening. I just got back late and I was like super sunburned and everything, and it just made my weekend slower. But it was awesome. I talked about it a bit on my stream, and it's coming. But There are levels of life that, like, try convincing the academic community that life lives and never had a beginning. Like, that is such a fundamental rewrite of everything that we claim to know, and it's true. It means that everybody who has been like, who continues to this day to be like, when did life start? You know, life started when a bunch of, hydrocarbons were in a puddle and then got struck by lightning. It's like, no. No. Like, that's maybe how cellular life got started, but that's not how life got started. Not all life is cellular life. Life lives. Death is the only illusion. And that's true. That's like scientific fact that will be eventually figured out. And the only way we do it is by anthropomorphizing this consciousness that is existence. If you anthropomorphize existence, it's not that much of a jump to anthropomorphize a proton. But if you don't anthropomorphize existence, which means attributing feelings to it, you're not going to anthropomorphize a proton. And if you don't do that, you will never understand why it does what it does. You won't. But, okay, here. This is the objective levels of life. Like I said, that I think line up with bot periodicity in mathematics. Well, why is this not letting me zoom in? Weird. Okay, well, you can see it. That's very strange that it's doing that. But that's it. Hadron is an assembly of quarks. A quark is a force point of the universe. It's like finger of the universe. It's not a sentience itself. It's like finger of greater sentience that is NA on our universe. An atom is an assembly of hadrons. A molecule is an assembly of atoms. A cell is an assembly of molecules. An organism is an assembly of cells. A family is an assembly of organisms. A caste is an assembly of families. And a nation or technological singularity, like an objective nation, is an assembly of castes. And then the system restarts. And that's what it does. You can see that same exact process right here. Oh, there we go. And this is conscious and sentient. 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 This is a consciousness that is sentient. This is two, and this is two. But they're maneuvering, and so is this. And they're maneuvering in different, mediums. So almost. So like a family moves within time. Not just more so than in space. But an organism moves within space. And a cell probably, then we think it moves within space, but it probably in weird ways moves in time. And then a molecule moves within space, and atoms move within time, and then hadrons move within space. And so on and so forth. It's probably going through that. I'm not sure. That's not something I've proven yet, but I see it happening on this level, so I would assume that it's also happening down here, but I can't exactly make sense of it quite yet, so I'm being honest. But I can tell you that these are the periodicity of consciousness. And from here down, totally across, it is all sentient. You are an organism, which is an assembly of cells. This is the body consciousness of you, which is always a wave of multiplicity. You have multiple cells. And your head consciousness is always the singularity of you. So a head consciousness of an organism is an organism, and the head consciousness and the body consciousness of an organism is an assembly of self. And vice versa here and here. You know, it just goes on. So, but this is what geometric unity says, essentially, as well. I'm not saying it's laid out like this, but I know for a fact that the structure of, you know, reaching a technological singularity and then restarting the simulation because it is replicating, essentially, and that we are the AI in someone else's system in the preceding universe, that is true. All consciousness is artificial, aka created. All consciousnesses are created except one, which is existence itself. But that doesn't mean that they're fake. It just means that they are created. There's no such thing as fake consciousness. There's just true mind and true consciousness and true sentience. And sentience is the definer of true mind. So, like, your computer calculates, but that doesn't make it a mind. Sentience is when you feel things. So much work on this sheet. I really need to clean it up, but like, I don't think anybody's done this math right here. And it is math. It's calculating objectively, all of it. You change. This is the only input right here for this entire structure. All these numbers, every single one of them, even down here onto the next aeon, all of them are calculated from this one input. You can change this to whatever you want. You'll see what you get, but it only works when you do this. Because there's only one existence to start with. Shows the calculations here. This is all calculating, you know, those equations. It's not just random colors and whatever. But you can see the colors line up. So an atom, which is orange here, lines up with the orange here, which is an assembly of hadrons. And so when you go to assembly of cells, which is this light blue, what would it be over here? You go to light blue and it's an organism. An organism is an assembly of cells. So it's very simple. I showed this to Robert Grant like years ago. I sent him just that one like thing that I showed you here, basically. Just this thing. And he straight up wrote me back. He was like, I've never seen somebody lay that out so simply. I was like, I don't know how, because it seems inevitable. But you have to have the right perspective to do it. I don't even think it's enough to say it's a mind. I think you have to say it's sentient. Do you think that entropy is the result of this world being a derivative of another realm of existence, and that the universe's desire necessity via space-time to return to source, whatever that may be? Yes. Yeah. There's a large part of what you just said that is true. I also think that entropy is a motivating force for change. But yeah, I do believe Eleutherian. I think that's correct. Oh, camera. Okay, let's see, back to here. He didn't. That's a pity. It would have been great. Oh, if what's his name, Chris Langan got back to me, that would have been great. Yeah, it would have been great. I'm gonna keep asking. Don't worry, but I don't know if he'll say yes. I like him though. I think that we would have a great conversation. CTMU group that meets is for Patreon supporters. There are also Q&As in which people can submit questions to be asked at a certain date. Okay, monotheism over all gods, lowercase gods. Yeah, sure. But I just think that we should have a word that describes sentient existence that is different from a word that we describe with anything else. Like, I don't even think we should say lesser gods. I just think there's one. Like, you can say, we have to have another word for lesser gods. Because there are levels of consciousness above human beings that are they're not universes, they're observable universes themselves, but I call them cosmological verses, but Roger Penrose calls them aeons. Like, that is a sentient being itself, and that is essentially like almost a god consciousness, but they are not existence, they are created. They also do create another, universe inside themselves, but they aren't themselves created. So they should be called something different than God. To compare, mesh, or translate the name of your theory to CTMU would be basically like the cognitive theoretic model of sentient singularity. No. It would be like the sentient theoretic model of the singularity. That's what it would be, Chris. It'd be the sentient theoretic model of the singularity. There's some cool tech now, bliss out, and popcorn. So while I milk your energy, time, and money, this for probably. I don't know what you're saying. Heavy equipment. But Chris says you're right, so you're probably right. I don't have an Instagram, but I do have Facebook. I'll send you a message there right after your stream ends. Cool. I mean, I don't know if you can even send me private messages on YouTube, but if you can, send me one. Maybe I'll get it. But you can also send it to me on Facebook. I do keep Facebook private. I'm just letting you know. Like Facebook, I don't post anything interesting on there on my personal page, and it's private. But you can still send me a message. I'll answer you. Yeah, you got it. I guess I'm thinking of the concept through a sort of Platonist Gnostic perspective. This is all fascinating. It makes sense on a few levels. Cool. I'm glad it's resonating with you. Okay. What time is it? It's 11:48. I'm getting off. But thank you guys for being here as always. Maybe I'll wait 2 more minutes. You can ask your final questions. Res Philosopher just joins right at the very end. Sorry, man. But you can watch it once it's posted. But this is the end of the stream. It was a good one, so I do suggest watching it. But I'm about to get off. But I thank all of you for being here. As always, it was awesome. And I'm just grateful that this work is resonating with people. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 7:20 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on here. Again, I'll start the stream at 7:20. So, all right, guys, peace out, and I'll see you tomorrow.